Welcome to this new training session, this new sharing that we're going to do using biodecoding. We're going to talk today about a central theme. Each disease has a sense, has a reason. As you know, biodecoding proposes a new paradigm in relationship to health. You know that it's not by improving a candle that we've invented electricity. It's not by improving horse feed that we have invented cars. We have to change a little bit the paradigm to change. So with regards to disease, biodecoding proposes to take this giant leap and to say that each symptom, each disease has a sense, has a use. Even though this might sound a bit arrogant when it affects our body. So what does it mean? What does biodecoding mean? And not the psychological, the emotional, the symbolic meaning of disease. Because in 1993 is when I decided to look at this new approximation to the human being, this biodecoding. Each disease, as I say, has a biological meaning. And this means that to decode, to translate, to understand the sense of a disease, like an acupuncturist decodes by placing energetic needle, or the transgenerational therapist is going to analyze what's happening and can conclude it comes from ancestors. For us, this comes from a sick organ, and we're going to say, what is the meaning of this organ? So for example, we have a patient who comes for a consult to find herself with a new perspective, because she has a bladder infection. She's had one for a week. So what is the biological sense? This is the first question, the central question. What is the biological sense? And the answer to this question is what's going to allow us to grow consciously. And it's going to allow symptoms to transform. Of course, together with a doctor. So this bladder infection, which is an infection in the bladder, this is a woman who urinates frequently throughout the day. So what is the use of this? So obviously, in her mind, you might think, this is very annoying, I want to stop this. But if the body's producing the symptom, it's for a reason. There's a reason why the body is doing this. The body has no initiative. The body does what it is instructed to do. If I raise my hand, it's because I've asked my body to do this. The hand doesn't do it on its own. A part of me is asking my hand to move. Therefore, who is asking my bladder to urinate? Where is this order, this demand coming from? This is the work of the biodecoding therapist, is to go look for who is asking for this. But it's not in our conscious mind where we're going to find the answer. Otherwise, it would be very easy. From the conscious mind, we would say, stop, bladder, heal already. Or our conscious mind would say to the rheumatism that we have, okay, so look, heal already, and then there would be no disease. But of course, it's not in our conscious mind. It's never there. The answer is never there. It's in our subconscious mind. And our subconscious mind is biological. Our subconscious is the sum of everything we've learned, of all our adaptive behavior, our universal adaptive behavior. Yes. And this is what I wish to explain to you now. In nature, we observe animals, many animals, that mark their territory with their urine, whether it's dogs or lions or hyenas or panthers. We observe that they do this every morning, every day. They walk around the perimeter of their territory and they will urinate. They will send out scent information, and that's how they inform other animals that if they cross that scent barrier, you're in my territory, you're in my home. How is that useful? This woman I was talking to you about, who comes for a consult because of a bladder infection, and she wants to understand, she wants to look at herself, she wants to analyze herself under this new angle. She remembers something, a conflict that she had with her mother, something painful. This woman goes on vacation with her husband and gives her mother her apartment keys and asks her, Mom, while I'm away, could you come over and water the plants and feed the cat? So the mother agrees, she accepts, and that's how things go. The daughter comes back from vacation, everything is great. And the mother has kept the keys in case there's a future vacation. And while one day she's having dinner with her husband, her mother appears in the living room. And the daughter, surprised, says, how did you get in? And the mother says, oh, well, I have the keys. And the daughter says, but you could have called. And the mother says, well, for what? I have the keys. Well, you could have called. You could have warned me. Why? I'm your mother. Yes, but what if I were in the bathroom, in the shower? What would you do? And the mother doesn't even want to continue the conversation. So this feeling, this resentment, this emotional conflict that the daughter has is, my mother is in my territory. She's stepping all over my space, and I can't change this. Regardless of whether I tell her, she doesn't want to change. And my need is here, is to feel that I'm being respected in my home, in my territory, in my references. And this happens 10, 20 times. And each time the daughter becomes scared. It's like she's being violated, her territory. And the organ corresponds, the organ that responds to this is the bladder. Another young woman comes for the same issue, gallbladder. She's a student, and she shares an apartment with housemates, and the bathroom is for everyone. So she has her room as her intimate space. It's her territory. It's her domain. Just like you have your domain. I don't know what your domain is, your workshop, your garden, your house. What is your domain? What is your home? Where is your intimacy? Where is that place that is important to you that nobody can enter without warning you? Well, for this girl, it's her room. This is where she has all her belongings, and she tells her flatmate, and she says, please don't go into my room. We can share everything, the kitchen, the living room, other places. But one night, she comes into her room and she sees that her room has been cleaned, everything has been put into place, and she becomes enraged. She goes to see her flatmate and she says, what have you done? She said, oh, I wanted to surprise you and I've cleaned up your room. But I don't want you to clean up my room. It's my space. And the flatmate doesn't understand. So we don't have conscious and voluntary solutions, so that when I can't change my external world because I can't satisfy an internal need, there's only one need. There's only one solution. And it's a solution that is unconscious, involuntary, internal. It's what we call the disease. So she gets a bladder infection. Another man also has a bladder infection, and we are going to find the same resentment, the same biological sense. 25 years ago is the first time he got this bladder infection. What happened 25 years ago? And at first he says, nothing, because nothing ever happens with people in a conscious way. Everything's fine, everything goes on, life goes on, and I insist. And he says, yes, 25 years ago I moved, and I moved to the place where I now live, and I explain the story of the dog that marks the territory, or like the lion and other animals. And immediately, he's listening, and the biological sense and the interest of this concept that I'm sharing with you, immediately, he makes the connection with something that happened, a very specific situation. When he moved to this new home, he suffers the noise of the upstairs neighbor, especially at night. The neighbor gets up at night, dances, puts music on, dances. And this patient says, I have the sense that he's dancing in my room, that he's here in my apartment. It's just too much. It's over the top. So this gentleman gets up many times at night to use the bathroom until the session that we have. This awareness, this first awareness of therapy, which we will study in another course ahead of time. So this gentleman, when he becomes aware during the consult, starting from that moment, he never had to get up at night to go to the bathroom ever again. He never had another bladder infection again, and it had been 25 years that he had suffered through this. If somebody else comes with an with eczema, what is the biological sense? What is the use of skin? The biological sense of that organ, the sense, the function. Skin, epidermis, is to touch, to be touched. A child has eczema. What happened right before? Well, his mother has begun working again, and the mother doesn't touch him as much, just like the baby who is placed immediately against the skin of the mother, because it's very important to be skin to skin from birth. When a baby nurses, when a baby is being bathed, this baby needs this contact, this biological contact, skin to skin, which this satisfies many things, the sense of security, of belonging, of being important, of love. And all this is transmitted skin to skin. He's recognized, he's loved, he's reassured, but mom goes back to work and he doesn't get touched as much. He doesn't touch as much. And then the epidermis manifests that situation with an eczema, and he's going to start scratching. He's going to start feeling itches from the moment that mom goes back to work. And by scratching, he is touching himself. He's giving himself pleasure through this contact, and this alleviates him, and this makes him feel better. And that's how he satisfies this need, this biological need, through a disease. Another person has a dark spot on the skin, a melanoma or a freckle. At any rate, it's excess tan, it's excess melanin. What is the use of this? What is the biological sense? Of course, this is arrogant, and it can make you nervous to tell this to a patient who has melanoma, cancer, skin cancer. And the patient says, I want to cure myself. I'm going to follow all the advice that I receive from doctors, because it's obvious that biodecoding does not replace allopathy, it doesn't replace anything. Therapy is not a competition, it's not a sport, it's an art. So it's about working together, not one against the other, obviously. So what is the use, as I was saying, of this melanoma, of this black spot on the skin? Okay, well, we go back to biology. When the body produces this spontaneously and in a natural way, when does this happen? Well, when we are in contact with an excess amount of sun. We're on vacation, we're at the beach, or on the mountains, it's the summer. We travel abroad to a sunny country, or at least where there's more sun where we live than when we live. And we get a tan. And this isn't a disease, it's adaptation. For our comfort and for our survival. So excess sun, excess ultraviolet rays is going to burn our skin. So biology has invented this solution, and it works quite well. We become tanned, and in that way we protect our body from ultraviolet rays. But now I find a student who has dark spots on his chest and his rear end. It's not a section of the body that is normally exposed to the sun. So when I explain the biological sense, so she remembers a very traumatic situation where she was taking a shower after practicing sport, and the person training them looks at them and says, "Oh, now you're washing yourself after sport." And the student feels attacked by this man looking at her. And so she creates a protection. In the same way that you protect yourself against the sun, she protects herself against this look. And this is the explanation for these spots on her breast and her rear end, because she feels attacked. We also have another patient, an adolescent. She's 14, and she also has a dark spot on her side. And why on that side and the other girl on her chest? What is the difference? And what is there in common? Because it's also a dark spot. So what is there in common? So this adolescent, every morning, is woken up by her brother, who tickles her. And she feels attacked and hurt and attacked. So she tells her mother, and the mother protects the brother. But for her, the brother is violating her limits. And it's important to know that at the same age, when the mother was 14 years old as well, she was violated. She was raped. Somebody also went beyond the limit. So for a disease, for each symptom, there's the same biological sense. For everybody, the eyes are to see, the ears to listen, the lungs to breathe. And when we study each individual organ, we will study with the biological sense. So if somebody is deaf, why? Because ears are made to listen, to hear. And if somebody says something to me that is unbearable, or somebody screams at me, or says something that is unpleasant, or shouts at me, then the solution is to become deaf. It's almost as if you were in a studio that were joined to another studio with a microphone and loudspeakers, and in the studio next door, somebody's insulting me constantly and in a mean way. and it's very unpleasant. So then what do? We have the ability to lower the volume so that that situation becomes more bearable. I don't listen to the insults anymore. Or, for example, there was a boy who was traumatized because during social science, the teacher at the time would kill rats and would dissect them. And that boy really, really loved animals. And he would remember the scream of the mice, of the little rats. And this scream was completely unbearable. It's the scream of death. Or another person who has been insulted in front of the entire class because that person has forgotten their bag. Or somebody else could be parents who are constantly arguing because of that child and who threaten to become, to get a divorce. And for a child, this is unbearable. So the solution for a child is to lower the volume of the loudspeaker. I listen less, I hear less. And so that disease is a solution. If I hear less, or if I had heard less, I wouldn't have had these problems. So one of the solutions, even before the big shock. Another person comes to the consult because that person has a thyroid problem. So what is the thyroid for? And if you're not a doctor, if you don't come from the medical world, and you don't know what the thyroid gland is for, and you want to understand what it's for, then you search and you investigate. And you will learn that this gland makes hormones. And the most important one is thyroxine. And this hormone, this thyroid hormone, goes to the blood, and there in the bloodstream reaches all the organs, all the cells, all the tissues of the body. This hormone, what it does is it speeds up the rhythm, the metabolism of the body. It's going to make the cells work at a faster rhythm. Why? Why make more hormones at this moment? Why have a thyroid tumor? Why develop hyperthyroidism? Well, we have the answer when we look at the biological sense. I want to make things go faster. I want my heart to beat faster. I want my movements to go faster, my life, my metabolism. My furnace in the inside, my factory, works faster in an accelerated manner, intensely. Why do I want to speed up my metabolism? Well, because things are just really slow. Something has happened. Do you understand that disease is the adaptation to a precise occurrence? We will learn this a little bit further ahead in the Bioshock lesson. It's the adaptation to a precise moment. So I just spoke to you about being deaf. I've heard something that is disagreeable, but everything else I like. I like to listen to music. I like the sound of birds, but something is unpleasant. So I've lowered the volume, and I can't raise it again because the disease is a generalization, unfortunately. Disease is an adaptation to a precise situation, to a unique situation. So why too much thyroid? Because something is too slow. So I remember one patient whose mother, forever, would wake her up too late for school. So this girl runs around all morning. She has breakfast really fast. She cleans up really quickly in a rush. Sometimes she misses her bus and she's late to school because her mother doesn't wake her up in time. And she always has to catch up to time. So she is going to make more hormones to make her body go faster so she can get to school on time, because otherwise she's going to be punished. I remember that some generations ago in the French Alps, there were many people who had thyroid problems. And at the time, the association was that there wasn't enough fish, there wasn't enough iodine. So in these towns, before, had to work very hard in the summer because the winter was very long. There was a lot of snow. You couldn't grow anything. So you had to work twice as hard in the summer. You had to take care of the animals, that they would be out in the pasture, and you would always have to chase time because there wasn't enough time. So hyperthyroidism is this. So hypothyroidism is the exact opposite. Something is going too fast and I need to slow down. So if a person is paralyzed, what is the biological reason? What is the reason behind this person can't move? So there's this one child whose parents get a divorce, and the parents allow him to choose your mom or your dad. But he doesn't want to choose. He wants to be with both of them. Okay, so if you want to go with daddy, you won't see mommy. And if you go with mommy, then you won't see daddy. So he doesn't want to walk to one or the other. He wants both of them to be there. So he becomes paralyzed. So each disease has its biological sense, the biological meaning. The last example is the gonads, the ovaries and the testicles. They make gametes, or eggs or sperm. So we observe this in nature, that there are animals, like fish, that make a lot of eggs that become fish, because most of them are going to die, or they're going to be eaten by other animals and they're going to die. So I need to make 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 little offspring fish. However, a whale is only going to have one little baby whale, because the whale knows that unless a killer whale kills its baby, the baby's going to survive. So a lion has 2 or 3 baby calves, and sometimes the alpha lion is going to hunt down the father and is going to kill the baby lions because they're not his. So the lion immediately has this conflict. I've lost my babies, those babies that are going to perpetuate the race. So here's where ovulation comes into play to perpetuate the species. So this is where ovulation comes in. So to perpetuate the race and to then be inseminated by the alpha male and to perpetuate life. Therefore, these are some examples of the biological meaning of all disease, which is really the first question. What is the meaning of this? What is the sense of disease?